Hey, welcome to my channel. My name is Bea and this is where I talk about knitting and crochet, and today I want to talk about some of the popular knitting and crochet patterns that I've been duplicating. So I don't normally want to start a video with a load of disclaimers, but I think it's worth throwing it out here right now. You're not going to find out how to duplicate any famous patterns from this video. This is not a DIY tutorial, and part of the reason for that is I don't want to talk about that. I don't find it that interesting to go into details, but also I think that would make me feel pretty shady. I don't actually feel that shady for duplicating popular knitting and crochet patterns, but I do have a kind of code, as it were, in how I approach it. So for example, I only duplicate patterns that I know I will never ever buy. The patterns I've been duplicating are patterns that even if there was no way I could make this in any other way, there is no other scenario, I would just never pay the amount of money that the designer wants for it. I also don't want to help anyone else duplicate them. I think websites where people upload paid for patterns and everyone uses them for free, I don't morally agree with that. I don't have a big, well-developed philosophy around it. I just think it's wrong. Also, I don't want to do anything that's going to undermine creators. I am doing this for me because I enjoy the challenge of looking at a photo and trying to work out how was that done, how would I do that. Yeah, so I really enjoy doing it. But also, and this is because for the majority of my time knitting, I've not had much money. I could not afford to buy patterns. Now I technically could probably afford to drop a tenner on a pattern. But there's something within me where it's I have some friends who will not buy coffee out, and it doesn't matter if it's supporting their local coffee shop, and it doesn't matter if it's amazing coffee they couldn't get at home. In their heads, and this is often a hangover from times of scarcity, the idea of paying 3 or 4 quid for a coffee when you can just bring a coffee from home, that's insane. And that's how I feel about most patterns. I do buy patterns quite regularly, but I buy patterns that I know I could not recreate myself. I'm not going to buy a pattern that I already know how to do. The number of granny square, paid granny square patterns I see out there, I'm just it feels actually predatory at this point. People just preying on beginners. Who on earth is buying a granny square pattern? Beginners who don't know better, in my opinion. I've seen people try and turn it around that you should buy a pattern to support a designer, etc, etc. And I'll buy a book, I'll buy a pattern book where I actually get the pattern itself, and I can keep that pattern forever, and I don't need to worry about where it's stored and printing it off and all of that stuff. But I am not going to pay what I would pay for a pattern book 3 or 4 years ago on one PDF, with the exception that I have, but I'm not going to do it for the majority of patterns. The patterns I buy tend to be really elaborate, things that are just absolutely outside my skill set. And yeah, I have bought patterns before from designers who have posted they're struggling. I've been admiring their patterns for a while. They've asked for people to kind of support their business and stuff, and I've been yes, these two things are meeting up. I admire this person's creativity. I want them to be able to keep creating patterns, and they have a pattern that I genuinely love and that I genuinely cannot do myself. But those are pretty rare exceptions. Most of the time, if I'm looking at a pattern and I can roughly work out how to do it, or I can Frankenstein it from existing free patterns, I'm going to do that. Now I want to talk about the patterns that I have been recreating. I have 5 patterns I'm going to talk to you about today, which I've made in 2025, which are all duplications of popular patterns. And I'm going to talk about the crochet one first because it's the one I'm least happy with for a variety of reasons, and then hopefully we're going to end on a high note. This was based on an amazing pattern by I think they're an Australian creator called Ed Sfar, which I love the name. And they made the Valla vest. So I saw this popping up on my Instagram feed a lot. I loved the yellow with the red, that just immediately drew me in. I loved it. And this is the classic example of a pattern where I look at it, I think it's amazing, happy to, throw some money in the Critters Ko-fi account or something, but I'm not going to buy that pattern, particularly not for, I think it was selling for 8 quid or something. I think a lot of these patterns, anything over a 5, I'm a bit And definitely not this one, because I could just look at it and work out how to do it myself, the nature of crochet patterns that I'm drawn to is that they do tend to just be blocks. This essentially is it's essentially squares, it's not there were bits and pieces on it which had more of a curve to it, but yeah, I just looked down and I was yeah, I can do that. So this is what I came up with. So I think that I did a pretty good job recreating the alternate stitching. I think that I definitely would have benefited from buying the pattern when it came to the puff stitches, because I'm pretty sure once I finished doing it, I was like, why are mine all slanting, you know? And I realized it's probably down to the number of chains I've done between them, or the number of times I've wrapped the yarn or something. I did this in paint box cotton. The purple is tea rose. The red I think is just called like pillbox red or something. This is one of the ones where I'm like, and this is part of the reason why I'm not as happy with it. Like, I got to the end of it and I was like, you know what? I have technically got my own valla vest, but I feel like I would have ended up with a slightly better, more polished version if I just bought the pattern. And I have not worn this much. And a lot of that is just because of my colour choices. So purple and red, I don't know why I thought this was a combo. I do not wear purple. I wear loads of red, but the thing is, purple and red, like, what's the third colour that goes with that? Nothing. So what am I going to do? Like, I'm like, a lot of the photos from this are people wearing it without anything underneath. That's not really me either. So anything I wear underneath is a third colour I'm introducing to the mix. I've tried it with black and it looks a bit weird, like one of those dolls where you kind of like can, like, they have magnetic outfits, you know, like a flat picture of a doll, and then you like put on a top and then you take that off and you put on a different top, and it looks like that against black. I will try it on. It's kind of a shoulder season vest because it's quite thick, and I spend most of my time in t-shirts, and I wear a lot of white t-shirts, and even against white this isn't really doing it, and it's because of my colour choices. Well, it also, okay, so this neckline, I feel like I would have got a better neckline if I'd followed the pattern. Like, a lot of the necklines do look quite blocky, but I have seen some that are more curved, and I'm like, there's probably some kind of like alteration you can make. And Ed Svart seems to be quite conscientious in terms of how they set up their patterns. They seem to have quite a lot of sizes, or they did the last time I checked. So I feel like they do provide, it seems like they provide guidance in terms of if you want to make adjustments, and I probably could have got a better neckline from it. But also I don't, like, technically I did it, but it feels to me like, and I'm going to completely forget the reference for this, but you know that whole thing of like, you spent so much time thinking about whether you could that you didn't stop to think whether you should. That's me with this, to be honest. I think if I'd made it a different colour, I would have got more wear out of it, definitely. There's a little bit of bunching here with the puff stitches in the middle, which I don't love. And I don't know if I was to make it again, if I would just do all of it like these sections here. Like, because I think, like, I love the puff stitch, and that's what originally, like, really sparked my interest in this. But I don't love doing them. Like, it killed my wrist, and I feel like it's probably a better way of doing it for clothing. And also, this is as I realised that I actually just don't particularly love crochet clothing. For me, like, it feels quite constrictive. I feel like it's a lot more limited than what I can knit. Like, I don't know if it's I'm a better knitter or knitting is better for clothing, but yeah, this is just not, it's not got much wear. I was looking at it and I was like, okay, if the issue is the colour, should I dye it? But then even if I was to dye it black, or if I was to redo it in white, which are the two colours that immediately spring to mind, is like they would be more functional colours. I didn't enjoy making it enough to do it again. I think I was very focused on the puzzle rather than the end result, and it shows. And I think all the other dupes I'm going to show you, I was a bit more kind of like, this is one of the first dupes I did this year, and I think for the other, in fact, yeah, this was the first dupe I did this year. And I think I learned from it, because all the other ones I did this year, I tried to be a lot more thoughtful about what colours am I choosing, how will this fit in my wardrobe, what does this go with, what hole is this filling, whereas this is the only thing that I've made this year. Like, this is the only thing out of the dupes I've made where I'm like, why did I do this? What was the point? So yeah, would not necessarily say it's a success. Like, I ended up with something decent, but I'm probably not going to wear it. I'm probably going to donate it, to be honest. Like, it's a well-made piece, like all the ends are woven in, there's not any obvious errors with it, but I just feel like someone else might find it and get some use out of it. I don't think it's going to be me. One thing that I think was a very successful dupe was the version I did of the Sophie scarf, and this is another one that as soon as I saw it, I was immediately just like, eyes got twice as big. I was like, oh, what's that? That looks cool. And I actually didn't see it online first, which is unusual for me. I went to a knitting circle that's run by this group near me, which is like for gardeners who knit, and there was a woman there who was knitting it in red, and I was just really drawn to it, and she was doing it in red and I loved it and everything, so I looked it up later, and it's by Petite Knit, and I already don't particularly enjoy the way Petite Knit writes their patterns. Like it's just not the way I prefer to read patterns. Like my ideal pattern is basically like 6 lines long, like and I find hers quite long. I feel like I'm having to double check what terms that I thought I already knew meant. And I have seen a few other people say this about her patterns, where sometimes she'll describe something in a way that is not like standard knitting lingo. And like the fact is, language is fluid, everyone can come up with whatever definition they want. But if I'm trying to kind of just like be in the zone and have a fun little time knitting, I don't want to like, I don't want to be like double checking what knit through the back loop means in her world versus my world, you know? Also, I felt like it was a lot for what is essentially just a teeny tiny little scarf. Like I know it's very popular, it's probably made her loads of money, but that's the definition of a pattern to me, where I'm like, I feel like that one could be free from the designer, and then you can get an idea of like if you like their patterns, if you want to make more, but I digress. So I wanted to make my own version of it, and the reason I'm not showing you the version I have right now is this is the second one I've done. I did a version in just like acrylic blue as part of my blue stash busting video, just to try out the pattern I ended up choosing, and then it was way too thick and everything, but I knew that I liked it, so I made it in a much nicer wool. So the pattern I ended up choosing, and I'll put it on the screen, I think it's called A Simple Thing, and I chose this because it was free and I liked the way it looked, I liked the way it was styled, like a little croissant kind of thing. I thought that was quite cool. But I also knew that I could adapt it. So this is what I mean by like taking a free pattern and just adapting it. So I looked at the Petite Knit one, and I wanted the Sophie scarf, but I wanted one that looked a little bit less like a rope, to be honest. And that's not disparaging like what the pattern actually looks like. I just, when I have stuff around my neck, I want it to be a very specific look and aesthetic and feel, which is why I made 2 versions of the scarf to get the version that I like the most. So I didn't want it to be quite as long and stringy as the Sophie scarf, but I wanted more of a point than the pattern. So the first version I did it in the Simple Thing pattern. It says to increase every 4 rows, and I increased every 6. And I was all right with it. It was kind of okay. But then when I did this version, so this is variegated wool, which I don't know why I've got so much purple. Like this was given to me, like, and just for someone who's like, oh, I don't really wear much purple. I actually am surrounded by purple right now. Like I am wearing like purple Crocs. But yeah, I actually don't know how to style purple very well. So yeah, I made this, and what I did, this is the second version I did, and you'll see this one's quite long and thin, and I increased every 8 rows with this one, and I'm about to make another one, and I might even increase every 10 rows. Just to get that kind of like longer point. So this one, I think my issue with this one is I made it too thin. Like I made the other one too wide, and then this one's too thin. But I like how it's turned out, and I still haven't like worked out the way to do the kind of like the coolly styled little knot thing. It's cozy, it's just not really my colours, and like I said, too thin. Like I don't want to have gaps around my neck and everything, so I'm going to make another one in red with some orange mohair, which is going to be for autumn. I think I'm going to keep this, but it's another one that I'm like, I might dye the wool. Like I might just go through, like for Halloween, I might just dye a load of my stuff black. Like maybe I will try and dye this, but yeah, I think this one worked out well. I was very pleased with it. I didn't make massive adjustments to the original pattern. But I think it's worked out really nicely. She's also got a really good little cast on video, because I was really struggling to work out how do you even cast on with an I-cord. Like this is an example of something which is, I'm saying it's very simple, but I don't think I could have duped this myself from the ground up, if that makes sense. Like I had never knitted an integrated I-cord before, so that was new, and I definitely never cast on an integrated I-cord. So you can see it's got the similar thing of just the stitches go down the side there, and where you cast on, it's like you essentially cast on 3 and 3 and 3 and then increase from there, and I would not have been able to work that out myself. So it was really good to have the pattern for that, and I do recommend it. The next one I made is by a designer called Wool and the Gang. It's called the Lonely Leftovers Vest. So I'm going to put this on, and this was also part of my blue stash busting video. This was originally a hexagon cardigan that I'd made, and this is in the middle of me realizing that I don't actually like most crochet garments on myself. Like, I think they can look really great on other people, but just not for me. This, I had loads of this blue cotton, and unlike these two, this isn't a colour I actually wear loads of, and I feel like really suits me in terms of my complexion, because I also feel like these two don't really suit my complexion very much, whereas this brings out, you know, makes my skin look kind of like almost a bit more rosy. Like, I feel like it brings out the red in my hair. Like, it's just, you know, I feel more confident in it. And I held it double, and honestly most of this was just, I wanted to try something. Like, I'd seen similar tops with the bow online. I wanted to try something out. I was looking for a similar pattern. I found the Lonely Leftovers vest, and I did consider buying it, but there's two things. So Lonely Leftovers is the only pattern version I saw was in worsted, and this is in fingering. And the Lonely Leftovers one has got this thing on the back where it's like you knit to the side and then you knit down, and I didn't want that. I wanted just... Does that make sense? Like, I knitted it flat basically. Although I did go from the top down, and I liked the challenge of that. So this is the whole thing. Struggled here because I added the I-cord afterwards. Which once again, it's like, and that's another reason I love to try and replicate patterns, because it really pushes me to try new things. Like, when I think a lot of the time I need a little bit of a push to kind of like up my knitting game. And working out how to do something new is always like that little extra kind of problem solving bit that gets me excited. And it does bunch a little bit around the corner, but I've seen other people make the Lonely Leftovers vest who also had that bunching on the corner. So unlike with the Valla vest, where I'm like, oh, if I'd actually bought the pattern, I probably would have got better puff stitches and less kind of bulges with that. I don't necessarily feel that buying the pattern would have ended up with a better garment. Happy with this. Once again, happy with the I-cord. I was on such an I-cord binge earlier in the year, and like, I love it. Like, I mean, I know I've seen people complain about I-cord stuff, but I find it really, like, really therapeutic to do at the end of a project. It feels very kind of like you're just making everything look nice and neat and tidy, you know? And it definitely massively improved this, because before I put the I-cord on, it looked very, very like wobbly, and this just like cinched everything in a bit. So this was pretty good. I have not actually got a lot of use out of it, which I'm not sure why that's happened, because it feels lovely. It's in cotton. I think it's paintbox cotton again. Like, I was on a bit of a tear with that, obviously. No, it's Sostrengren. It's cotton from them. So I don't know why I haven't got as much wear out of this. It might be because of one of my other dupes, which I'm about to show you, because I basically did this little blue sleeveless vest and then immediately did another blue sleeveless vest. It's another petite knit pattern, and I think it's called the Ivy vest. No, it's called the Maggie vest. So I'll put that up on screen. You know, I like this. This did not capture my interest the way that the Sophie scarf or even the Lonely Leftovers vest, like similar vest to that. Sorry, I'm kind of fighting the light today. Like, it's pretty much midday, and I don't know what's going on with the weather. It's honest, I should be back in my jumper. It's a very autumnal day right now, so bear with if it looks a bit weird and everything. I don't know why I included that. Like, whenever a YouTube creator talks about, oh, sorry about the light, sorry about the sound, I'm always like, yeah, no one's gonna notice apart from you. But when you're actually in front of the camera, it feels a lot more like, oh god, you know? Maybe it's like when you're hosting, and if you're around at someone else's house, you don't notice things as much, whereas when it's in your own house, you're like, oh my god, when was the last time we cleaned the windows? Like, I don't know. Anyway, so Maggie vest, once again, did not capture my interest the way that others did. Like, I'd seen it in passing, but firstly, even though I feel like it's a very simple vest, like it's just a vest, sleeveless, buttons down the front, I didn't see many of these. So I kind of saw it once and then it slipped my mind, whereas I think if I'd seen lots of different people doing it, maybe I would have had it in mind to try again. But a pattern designer who I do really like, who makes all her patterns free, although I tend to chuck some money in her Ko-fi again if I use one of them. She's called Annabella Williamson, and she's mainly a yarn dyer, but she does these really beautiful patterns, which I really enjoy knitting. And she released this one, which is called the Sally vest. And I immediately made a version, and you'll notice it is in the same colour as the petite knit Maggie vest, which was not intentional, but this just happened to be the wool I had. But yeah, I have basically lived in it this summer, and I think that's why the Lonely Leftovers vest has not got much of a look in. I was a bit worried when I was making it that it was going to look a little bit like a policeman's uniform, but I think it's okay. So this is it. Yes, there is a button missing at the bottom, but we don't talk about that. Yeah, so basically I saw her release this pattern, and you'll notice it's quite different to the petite knit one. I mean, obviously they're both sleeveless button-up vests, but it's different in that I think the petite knit one has more of a rounded neck, and also the petite knit one is a lot more fitted and cropped, whereas her one, which I think looks lovely and is very kind of elegant, is like a bit more kind of straight and a bit longer. Like I think it would probably come halfway down your hips, whereas the petite knit one kind of sits on the waist. But I saw it and thought, oh, that's lovely. It's not really the kind of thing I would get because I'm quite a short person. So I feel like it would make, like if I made it to the full length that she did, I was like, it looks very elegant on her model. And on me, it would look a little bit like I was wearing just like a smock or a very long, like long top. Like, is it a dress? Is it a t-shirt kind of thing? But then I realized I could take her pattern and crop it and make it a bit more fitted. So, and you know, I did nothing particularly sophisticated with that. I just chose a smaller size than was recommended with less ease than was recommended. I also chose a thinner wool than she used as well. And yeah, just cropped it early, which did lead to some issues. So I just said we don't talk about it, but we do talk about the extra missing button because I cropped it quite early on. I couldn't follow her recommendation for the button band, and I accidentally ended up with like these two buttons a lot further apart than the rest. But then I realized I actually like the idea of having a second button here, just to kind of, because I don't like it when it gapes at the top, which I think it would have done. I also think these buttons are a tiny bit too small as well. So yeah, I just did the two there and then worked it out for the rest of it, which I think also slightly helps it to have a more kind of like fitted cropped look, because it's quite cinched in here. Yeah, and I made this in like intensely cheap wool. Like it was just some Hayfield Super Soft, I think it's called, or Softly, that I had left over from another project. And yeah, I was just like, okay, like let's just try it out. And similar to the Simple Things scarf, like I'm gonna make loads of these. I already have a plan to make another one. Like I love it, it's been so comfortable. I've just been wearing it pretty much constantly. Like it wasn't until it hit like 22 degrees that I was like, okay, fine, maybe I'm not wearing it today. Okay, so the last one might need another costume change from me. And I think that the last one I did so far this year is going to be the last one of the year, partly because it's one thing to duplicate like an accessory or a top where it's relatively low commitment in terms of how much time and effort you're putting into it. You know, it goes quite quickly. I'm not really down for trying to replicate a massive jumper or something, you know, or like a kind of woolly knit. Like I feel like that would be a lot of effort and a lot of brain power. And most of my knitting and crocheting, I just want to be chill. I just want to be like relaxed, you know, not thinking about it and everything, which you'll see a lot with this, you know, like this is just stockinette, this is just garter stitch, and the next one's stockinette as well. So, and this is in the paint box, cotton DK as well. So I, like the rest of the internet, saw the SABAI top doing the rounds and I was kind of into it. I love the way it's styled, but I wanted a couple of different things to it. So I never bought it because I looked at it and I was like, that's kind of cool and I can see why people are really drawn to it. But there's a few things that I was just like, I didn't like the fact that there's no shaping at the back. And yeah, I can add shaping, but I'm not paying like, what, 8-9 quid for a pattern that I already know I'm gonna have to do my own maths on and do my own kind of changes to. Like it's one thing to kind of go into a pattern assuming you're going to follow it and then realize halfway through that you want to make a little change because you like the idea of a change. I found it quite dispiriting to buy a pattern already knowing that I'm going to have to make changes and that if I make it exactly to the pattern, I won't be happy. Like I don't enjoy that. I also wanted to knit it bottom up and the pattern's for top down. And I wanted it to be more fitted because I don't like the idea of like low loose armholes, and I'd seen quite a lot of creators on YouTube talk about how low the armholes were, and I was just like, okay, there are a lot of things against me buying this pattern, but I like the way it looks. So this is what I came up with. This is pretty much the only thing that I'm showing you, by the way, that's been blocked. And it looks like it hasn't been because it's cotton. Basically, I had already knitted most of a t-shirt in this and then realised that I just hated what I was coming up with and was like, okay, can I just use this as a gauge swatch Like as in like I took the top I was already making, worked out what the gauge was on it, and then basically cast on enough to start knitting the second top, and then knit from the first top where I was just like unraveling as I went. So yeah, I just did normal ribbing there, knit straight until I was at the point I wanted the armholes, used the armhole shaping from this pattern, which is New Dawn, I think, by Drops, because I quite liked how they did their underarms. Although since doing this, I have looked at the SABAI top and realised it's ribbing down the sides, which I'd kind of like somehow managed to miss. And I'm like, yeah, kind of wish, I just kind of wish the pattern was cheaper. I wish it felt like to me personally felt like, I'm trying not to say like less of a rip-off, but there's something in my hind brain which is just like paying £8 for a pattern that I know I'm going to change is just, it doesn't, the maths doesn't math for me. I'm not saying it's a rip-off, I'm saying it'd be a rip-off for me. Like I personally don't think it's worth that much to me as part of my hobby. But I do think like looking at it, I was like, but I do like that underarm ribbing, and I would struggle to do the maths on that myself to work out how to do it. And yeah, basically a lot of benefits to buying the pattern, I think. And then I did the neckline shaping, so you can see that is actually like the back is higher than the front, which is the main complaint I've seen about people who made it, is just like either they had to add it themselves or they wish they had added it. And then I was gonna do the ribbing at the top, but she has two versions of it, and even though I started doing the ribbing at the bottom, by the time I finished this, I liked her second version more, which is the roll neck. So this is where we are. So I kind of feel like it's two tops. So I'm going to try it on and talk about how successful I think it was. All right, so this is probably as much of myself as I will ever show on YouTube. Picture me wearing it without the bra straps. I've been wearing it with like a denim shirt, which has gone quite nicely, but I feel like that will like slightly hamper my ability to show you the top. So as you can see, it's quite fitted. I'll be very forgiving of my tension issues that I ran into using cotton. I like the shaping across. I feel like this is like exactly where I want my necklines to hit. Like I said, I've not been wearing it with this kind of bra, so it's looked a bit more elegant than it does right now. I was just going to put on one of these to kind of cover up my shoulders, and I was like, none of them have sleeves. That's kind of the theme. And yeah, I mean, the idea of duplicating a sleeve, I'm like, I probably could do it, but I don't want to. Like that takes me out of the kind of the role of like, this is a fun challenge, into like, oh no, we're doing like expert Sudoku and I am lost. I mean, I probably could just use other patterns to do it. And part of me is thinking, because I didn't do any ribbing around the armholes, which as you can see are like fitted, which is what I want, I can potentially imagine coming back to this and adding in sleeves, because I don't wear very many tight sleeveless tops, and even though I love how this looks with the denim shirt over it, it's such a kind of, it's another one that's in the realm of the valla vest where I'm like, did I get too focused on whether I could do this and stop to think whether I should, and whether it would fit in my wardrobe, and whether it's something that I'll actually get anywhere out of, because it feels like maybe a little bit. I'm gonna change out of it because I feel a bit self-conscious, but you've seen it and it's a top. I realised I said I was gonna rate how I feel like these went. I haven't really rated them or anything, but I think my most successful dupes were ones where I was basically just using another pattern and just making minor tweaks. You know, it's the Sophie scarf and it's the Maggie vest, and I think both of these, it was just very minor changes that were made. You know, it wasn't anything like massive. Someone else did all the maths for me. I really recommend both these pattern designers. Since knitting the free version of both these, I have bought patterns from both of them, and that's another thing that I try and do, where I'm like, if I like the way a pattern's written and they've done something a bit more complicated that's more of a challenge, I do go back and buy a pattern if I've had a successful time the first time. The two where, like, I think the crochet valla vest kind of exists in its own world, where that was very much like I was more in it for the intellectual challenge rather than actually the result. This is the only one that I just wouldn't do again, I think. Maybe I wouldn't do the SABAI top again, because I felt very pleased and proud of myself, because it's the first time I have done my own shaping in the back of something. Like, I've done my own short rows, and I felt quite like pleased that I'd worked that out. And most of these I did learn something new on, but I think both of these, I don't, ask me again next year if I got anywhere out of this, because I think I made it I made it for, basically it fits with one thing in my wardrobe, and I made it at the very end of the summer, so I didn't really get much wear out of it, and I just don't know. Yeah, this one probably wouldn't make again. This one wouldn't make again, but regret less or like more. And then this one sits in the middle. I essentially made it up myself from the beginning. Like all the kind of like armhole shaping and stuff I worked out myself. I didn't use any other pattern to kind of Frankenstein it. I learned new skills on it, etc. But I just haven't got much wear out of it. And increasingly, as my wardrobe gets more and more full, and I'm actually knitting more and more as I get older as well, I'm starting to kind of cast a more critical eye over my wardrobe and just be like, okay, but what gaps do I actually need to fill? And I'm on such a garment kick at the minute. Like for the last couple of years, I've mainly been focused on kind of like either accessories or home stuff. And then for some reason this year, I'm just like making loads and loads of clothes. But then I'm like, I want to be more thoughtful about what I choose to work on, full stop, whether it's a dupe or not. So I think what I'm going to try and do for the next year or so is go back to an idea I had last year, which I then immediately abandoned, which is I want to look at the stuff in my wardrobe that is shop bought and look at, do I think I could make a version of it myself and then return the shop bought thing to the charity shop so someone else gets some wear out of it? Because I'm so aware of like how much I have contributed to landfill over the years, particularly in terms of fast fashion, and I just kind of want to like look at what I've got now and be like, you know, I think a lot of people think that you can just send anything to a charity shop, and actually having like volunteered at a charity shop before and done all the clothes sorting and stuff, it gave me more confidence in what is in charity shops and how clean it is and how much they kind of like vet it and stuff, and you know, everything's steamed, everything's cleaned. Like I feel good about that. But I also know there's a lot of stuff that just can't go to a charity shop. Like if you're sending something that needs even the slightest bit of mending, it's just getting chucked. Like they have so many donations. There is so much thrifted stuff around now. They don't need to kind of rehabilitate some ratty like Tesco jumper, you know, when they probably have like a million others. So, and also just bobbles and stuff. Like you will still see stuff in charity shops and thrift stores with like bobbling and stuff, but not a lot, to be honest. And they don't need to have that stuff at all. And I'm looking at a lot of my shop bought stuff and just thinking, how much longer am I going to have this before it gets to a point where I've worn it so much that it's no longer in condition that could be sold in a charity shop? And is it time for me to start thinking about replacing it? Like I've got this long black cardigan, which I tried to make a version of last year and it just did not go well. It's probably got about 6 more months worth of wear in it before it gets to a point where a charity shop would not accept it. And if I donate it, it's just going into landfill. So I feel like now is the time for me to have another crack at making a version of this cardigan. So yeah, that's kind of where I want to sort of refocus my attention, I think. I've had a lot of fun this year kind of like tackling the challenge of like, how do I duplicate this? But I almost want to go back to my roots, as it were, and start looking at high street stuff again of like, how can I duplicate that? How can I find a pattern to make a version of it that works? Which honestly, like, to be real about my wardrobe means I'm going to be making a lot of stuff in black. But I feel like that's where I want to focus my attention now. All right, thanks for sticking around. Let me know if you're a process knitter where you just love the challenge, or you're more of a kind of end product knitter where you actually want to have the thing and own it, because I feel like I'm fluctuating between those two a lot at the minute. And also, yeah, just like, subscribe, do whatever you want. Bye.